Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. Today, I'm very excited to be talking to Colorado Attorney General Phil Weiser. We're looking back at this last year and some of the actions that we've seen from the Attorney General's office, both in terms of protecting our water and our environment, and also protecting consumers. Thank you very much, Attorney General, for joining me today.
It's always a pleasure. Thanks for your work, Danny.
Yeah, you bet. So one of the things that's top of mind, we're coming up on the Clean Water Act's 50th anniversary, an act that envisioned that we would be able to get to a point where our waters were clean enough to drink and swim, clean enough for wildlife. But unfortunately, we still have some problems when it comes to the quality of our waterways. And I know that there is an important decision that's in front of the Supreme Court right now. And you've actually been a leader in working to ensure that this case, Sackett versus EPA, that there is a strong case to be made to protect our wetlands. And I think a lot of people, when they think Attorney General, they might think more in the consumer protection or public safety space, but you play a big role in terms of clean water. And like I said, on this one, you've really stepped up and stepped out to make the case that we need to protect our waterways and our wetlands. Would you mind just talking a little bit about why you got involved and why you felt it was important to speak up in the way that you're doing?
Danny, this is work that actually goes back really to the beginning of my time as Attorney General. The work we do protecting our land, air, and water is a very top priority. Obviously, consumer protection is another top priority that we do as well, and appreciate CoPIRG's work on both fronts. What people need to understand is Congress passed a law, the Clean Water Act, for this purpose. We know that maintaining clean water is core to public health, is core to protecting our overall land, air, and water, and that too often, if we are careless, not protecting our waterways, there can be all sorts of collateral consequences. Obviously, it comes to an acute situation like Flint, Michigan. People talk about it there, but there's a range of challenges where bad stuff can get into our water, and then it'll get into our bloodstream. It'll destroy local ecological environments. There can be lots of damage. And so the Clean Water Act governs this is a phrase that's been litigated, waters of the United States. What some people would have, and this is the risk of this case, the Sackett case, is waters in the United States only means continuous active waterways, which is a pretty narrow interpretation because you get a lot of these, what you might call more intermittent, but predictable flows of water, which obviously can carry all sorts of contaminants, other harmful materials. And if you allow people to have their way with those intermittent streams, you're going to see a real damaging effect that's going to harm human health and it's going to harm our ecology. So there's something at stake in this case that I'm fighting for, which is the EPA being authorized to oversee really clean water over what I would call all the waters of the U.S. If you take that very narrow interpretation, Colorado is going to be forced to have its own state Clean Water Act because the feds are going to basically be out of this business, and that's going to be a very disruptive decision if that's where the Supreme Court goes.
Certainly. And you've traveled the state, you've been to, I think, every county in the state. Is water one of those issues that does come up that you've seen is top of mind for some people?
Absolutely. In fact, if you were in southeast Colorado right now, the lower Arkansas, people can't drink the water. It's a big problem in some communities. We're trying to get funding for what's been called the Arkansas Valley Conduit, which will enable them to have water that is of a quality you can drink it. People take this for granted. We've worked hard on this issue in Colorado, but we have to stay vigilant. And I want to underscore, we're having challenges now of water management, water quantity, if you will, because we have less water in this time of climate change. Less natural snowpack means less ongoing water access. That makes clean water even more important than ever.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So then to the point of the clean water, the other thing that I've noticed that you've done is making sure that polluters are held accountable, especially some of those manufacturers of things like PFAS. So we've seen down El Paso County as one area, but all over the state, these PFAS, oftentimes referred to as forever chemicals because they're designed to be water resistant or fire resistant. They're getting into our waterways and they're polluting and contaminating drinking water. And you've actually stepped up and taken action to go after some of those producers. Can you talk a little bit about what your office has done there?
For those who've seen the movie Dark Waters, Mark Ruffalo's in it, you have a pretty good picture of this issue, and you know the role that DuPont played in pushing out these forever chemicals, PFAS, and then engaging in this really reprehensible course of conduct, denying the damage that you had inflicted, leading to deaths of, in the case of, I believe it was in Ohio, cows, and this may have been also, I'm not sure if it was neighboring states as well, but wildlife, and obviously it's harmful to human health. What is painful about these forever chemicals is they get into your bloodstream, they don't go away, and we're only beginning to sketch out all the potential harms to human health. I'm going to hold them accountable. The DuPonts of the world knew better, should have done better, and need to be brought to justice. And that's what this litigation is about. There's increasing evidence that the levels of PFAS in not just El Paso County mentioned, but other parts of Colorado really are above what is appropriate and is acceptable for human health, which means we're going to have to do a lot of work on improving water quality by finding ways to remediate the damage that's been done. That's going to be the goal of this litigation.
Great. And I know litigation can sometimes take time, justice can take time. Do you have a sense of what the next steps are for that litigation, and when you might be able to see some resolution?
The X factor in litigation is, do you have a party who is willing to admit that they did something wrong and make it right? Or do you have someone who wants to drag it out as long as possible? In the case of DuPont, I believe what they've done is created a separate company, claiming that the separate company is the one on the hook for the PFAS liability, and the rest of the company can go about their merry way. We obviously aren't accepting that position. That would do real violence to the law and to this principle of accountability if you could simply divest yourself of the liability and leave those harmed with no recourse, because the damages would essentially bankrupt the company. So we're going to keep fighting hard on this, whether it's DuPont or others who are part of this story. There needs to be accountability. And I don't know whether it's going to come sooner or later. In opioids, we worked really hard on that accountability, and we're able to bring a lot of these cases to a agreeable settlement. That would be quicker. If we go through litigation, it's much more of a drawn out process.
Great, great. Well, thank you for all that work on clean water.